The Dick Morris Show. Entertaining and informative. On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Very rarely do we get an opportunity to vote for lower taxes. And particularly now with Mandami threatening to raise taxes incredibly, and with Hochul going along supinely. The opportunity presents itself in Connecticut, where Betsy McCaughey is running for governor against Hochul. Against Lamont, who is the governor.
She calls him Lefty Lamont.
Right.
So anyway, today, Betsy McCoy, a resident of Connecticut, is suing New York Governor Kathy Hochul and a New York State agency, the Department of Environmental Conservation, for violating the Interstate Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution by blocking the approval and construction of the Constitution pipeline. The lawsuit is filed in a district court for Southern District of New York. McCoy and other Connecticut residents rely on natural gas to generate 58% of the state's electricity. According to the American Legislative Exchange Council in 26 Energy Affordability Report, the energy could be produced using cheap and abundant natural gas from the Marcellus Shale region in Pennsylvania, except that the pipeline needed to convey it across New York State to New England has been repeatedly blocked by former Governor Cuomo and now Governor Hochul. Laura Sweat, chairman of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, testified to Congress on February 2nd that blocking the pipeline is causing New England consumers to pay as much as 300% higher rates for natural gas imported from countries such as Canada and Nicaragua. Previous litigation brought by the Williams Corporation, which has proposed a pipeline, challenged the state's use of Clean Water Act, Section 401, arguing that it should not trump the decision of FERC, which has approved the pipeline as long as 2014. This lawsuit filed today challenges, this is Betsy, this lawsuit filed today challenges New York State's obstruction on a stronger legal basis, the Interstate Commerce Clause. Blocking this pipeline from conveying natural gas from Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania to consumers in Connecticut is like closing off I-95, telling trucks they cannot traverse New York to bring goods from New Jersey to Connecticut. A clear violation of Interstate Commerce Clause, just the type of state-based obstruction framers intended to prohibit with the U.S. Constitution. Lefty Lamont, doesn't have the guts to sue Hochul, a fellow Democrat. I'm putting the people of Connecticut first, and I'm not waiting until I'm governor. That's great, Betsy. People need help with their electric bill, and that's what Betsy says. So we have her on the phone. Hi, Betsy.
That's a gutsy
It's very
thing
good to
do.
join you, and I'm glad we can discuss this lawsuit because it offers Connecticut residents and businesses real hope for the future. Right now, these residents and businesses are paying the third highest electric rates in the nation, right after Hawaii, which is an island in the Pacific, a series of islands, and California, which is kind of detached from reality on the western coast of the continent. But right there in third place is Connecticut, paying huge electric bills. And the major reason, Doug, is that Connecticut is importing natural gas from other countries at 3 times what they would be paying for it if they could get it from nearby Pennsylvania. They can't get it because New York is blocking the pipeline. It's a very clear case of violating the Interstate Commerce Clause, and it's precisely why the framers wrote the Constitution in the first place.
Wow.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, originally, the left wing said, "Oh God, fracking is terrible.
Yeah.
It's going to and the pipeline is awful," and they were all in disfavor. But now everybody realizes we need the pipeline and we need the oil and we need the gas. But they're attempting to obstruct it, and using the Interstate Commerce Clause to block that is a horrible thing.
Betsy, I want to ask you, have they started on this pipeline yet, or no, because it's been blocked?
It's been blocked since 2014. So for over a decade, Connecticut, and by the way, Massachusetts as well, people in those two states have been paying exorbitant rates for natural gas. 56% of the electricity in Connecticut is produced using natural gas. So their electric bills are exorbitant. Same true in Massachusetts. And this would provide urgently needed economic relief and giving the states, both of those states, enormous economic boost, a real shot at prosperity, because these high electric rates have retarded economic growth in both states. It's the second part of my Connecticut comeback plan. The first part, of course, is phasing out the state income tax. Connecticut will be the tax haven of the Northeast, surrounded by New York and Massachusetts and Vermont, all high-tax states, and Rhode Island. Businesses will want to come to Connecticut, where there will be eventually a zero income tax. And now phase two is to make it possible to build this pipeline expeditiously, quickly, and bring natural gas to Connecticut to make affordable electricity.
So tell us where your candidacy stands at this point. What's going on?
There's enormous enthusiasm in the state. I'm a latecomer to the race, and so unlike my two competitors in the primary, I am still raising money. I hope people listening will come to Betsy2026.com and make a donation. It's not often, Dick, that you can make a small donation to something with a huge impact. But in this case, that's true, because Connecticut law says that once I raise $340,000 in small increments, the state will unlock a $22 million grant to my campaign, which is enough to reach every voter in the state with these important economic platforms and win the race. So I'm hoping that everyone listening who cares about the future of Connecticut or wants to get a big return on their buck comes to Betsy2026.com and donates up to $340. That's the maximum donation.
Wow, that's great. I would love to see that happen.
Unbelievable. And Betsy has a real shot, and we could eliminate the income tax in Connecticut. But I didn't realize this other thing, which is the abundance of energy lying right next door in Pennsylvania that we're not permitted to tap and unconstitutionally.
And Betsy mentioned, as I mentioned her a couple of topics ago, is slow walk. Tell the people how you're going to do it, Betsy. You're going to keep them.
Well, I was talking. There's another very big issue in Connecticut. Lefty Lamont has signed a bill that forces all these beautiful towns in Connecticut, 169 of them, to give up their right to local zoning. And this is really important to people who have saved for years to buy a single-family home on a quiet street. And now the state is coming in and saying, you can't have that. The state has the right to build a big square apartment building or even a trailer park right next door to you. Never mind that it will ruin the value of your property. It will push up local property taxes because these little towns will have to build things like waters and sewers and bus lines to accommodate congregate housing. So that's a very big issue right here in Connecticut. And I've said that when I'm governor on day one, that law, which has already been passed, will be a dead letter. I will just slow walk it, as you said, Doug. Slow walk it. It dies of its own inertia.
Tell us how that affects homelessness in these towns.
Oh, God.
Oh, well, this is a really shocking provision in this law, and very left-wing. It's Lefty Lamont, he used to be a moderate, but now he's Mom Donnie in country club clothes. And
that's good.
This law
that's
says,
good, Betsy.
this law says that small towns that have their own town parks, usually in the middle of town where kids go after school and parents go and have picnics and
Bruce
things,
Park,
that they must allow vagrants to sleep overnight in the rough on these town benches, on the sidewalks, pitching tents. You know, there was a Supreme Court case 2 years ago, Grants Pass versus Oregon, and the Supreme Court ruled that towns have the right to ban vagrancy. They have a right to say you can't sleep on the street, you can't defecate on the street, you can't panhandle on the street. That's a lowering of our standards of living, right? You must go to a shelter if you are homeless. So, but Connecticut is trying exactly what Oregon tried unsuccessfully to do, and that is to force these towns to accommodate that way of life, to make it okay to be a vagrant, to live in the rough. And it's very dangerous because, as I've pointed out before, the Cicero Institute data shows that in Connecticut, at least in Rhode Island, 41% of people who are choosing to live in the rough, living on the street, are registered sex offenders.
No.
So, yes. So, you know, I live in a small town. One of the rites of passage is you give your kids or your grandkids $10 and you say you can go into town for the day, you can walk around, you can buy your own lunch, you can go shopping with your friends. Well, you can't do that if there are vagrants living in tents in these little parks because they pose a real danger.
In fact, didn't you tell me that they made park benches illegal where you can't put a divider in the park bench?
That's right.
So they could sleep on them.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yes. The law calls benches with a divider hostile architecture. Hostile architecture. And the law specifically outlaws any park bench that has armrests or a divider because it makes it too hard to sleep overnight.
It's unbelievable to believe that could do. And also, how about the showers they want to have at these parks? Did you talk about that yet?
Oh, good. I'm glad you raised that one, Doug. So the law, and this is a law already signed by that left-wing governor in Connecticut. This law sets up mobile flatbed trucks with showers and laundry facilities that will pull up to your little town park and accommodate the vagrants. They can go take a shower and wash their clothes and then go back to living in the rough in your town park. So this is the state government using taxpayer money to facilitate a lifestyle that is dangerous to these small towns.
So to stop this and to stop this law from taking effect, it's already been passed.
Well, I'm running for governor to stop this kind of left-wing nonsense and protect these towns and protect a way of life people enjoy, which is a small community where you can let your children walk into town and walk around.
Yep. So tell people what they can do, Betsy.
Once again,
I hope that everyone listening will come to Betsy2026.com. That's the website, BETSY2026.com, and make a donation. This is one of those rare instances where you can make a small donation and it will have a huge effect. It will be magnified many times over because it will unlock that $22 million public grant.
You know, what you're talking about with these, with Lefty, is so vulgar, and it's common sense what you want to do to take care of this, that why people wouldn't want you to first become governor and to get rid of all this stuff. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So they have
Betsy,
to.
Most people in the state are unaware of how radical and destructive and personally threatening to a decent way of life this legislation is. They just don't know that it's happened. But now you will see, if you're living in one of these towns, you're increasingly seeing people choosing to sleep in the rough, lie on park benches, pitch tents in the local park.
In Connecticut.
Yes, it's starting to crop up already. And the police, they have their hands tied.
Wow.
Because the state law prohibits them from discouraging this.
That's why we have you on, Betsy, so you can get this out there and people hear it. Imagine Bruce Park. And is this happening there? Exactly. Oh my God.
That's right. And children go to those parks after school, but they won't be able to anymore.
Wow.
It will be too dangerous. You couldn't possibly let your preteens sit in the park after school because there'll be tents there.
Oh my
and
God.
vagrants.
Well, how are you going to teach your kids anything? Anyway, thank you so much,
Betsy.
You, Betsy. And remember, Betsy
2026.com.
Okay.
Thank you so
Please
much.
Donate.
Okay.
Tax refunds are up 24% over last year. And tax refunds this season are up 24% compared with the 4-year average of refunds before Trump took office. Change credits the Republican tax legislation signed into law last year. As the tax season kicked off in January, the White House had boasted that average returns were projected to rise by at least $1,000. But currently the average refund amount is $3,521, according to the latest IRS data, which is an 11% increase from last year's $3,170 average refund payment. A Trump administration official who spoke on the condition of anonymity to provide a preview of the data analysis said the increase in refunds is due to tax breaks and spending cuts that impact taxpayers across economic brackets, including no tax for tips, no tax for overtime, deductions for car loan interest, and certain deductions for seniors. The official declined to specify which tax deduction had provided the greatest savings, and the analysis was based on the daily Treasury statements over the 21 to 26 period. Asked whether the Trump administration is concerned that any potential economic benefit from higher tax refunds could be offset by higher gas prices brought on by the war in Iran and the disruptions in the Straits of Hormuz, the official said money is going into people's pockets through increasing refunds.
So basically, as Betsy would say, axe to tax.
Yeah.
Just remember that when you think about your taxes, Betsy McCaughey, axe to tax. Remember, Betsy2026.com. We got to take a break, and we come back when we talk about other stuff. Right, Dick?
Good.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?